Yo, what's up everyone? A little bit of a different video today. I'm going to help you decide if the Warlock class in WoW Classic Vanilla Fresh is the right choice for you. We know the Fresh server is just coming up in a few days depending on when this video releases, but I'll break down the ins and outs, the pros and cons, and what key aspects you need to focus on before committing to rolling a Warlock. Now, why should you listen to me? It's a great question. I've put in over just about 10,000 hours playing Warlock since 2019. I've leveled about 6 Warlocks to level 60, and I've pretty much played every other class at max level. I think this gives me a pretty good understanding of the difference in playstyles and how the Warlock stacks up against the other classes. I've also spent a ton of time theory crafting and creating resources for the Warlock players. I even run a Discord where I share, a ton of stuff for my subscribers. You'll be able to find my best gear sets for every phase, talent builds for every phase, a detailed Warsong Gold guide, breakdowns for every 1v1 matchup. You will be able to find my add-ons, my weak auras, my macros, my key bindings, and my full custom UI. So, if you're considering playing a Warlock on Fresh, you're in the right place. Make sure you join the community for the Discord and the Twitch, links in the description box below. Now let's start with the Warlocks in PvE. In PvE, I think Warlocks are quite boring. Our rotation is extremely simple. You basically just curse your targets, spam Shadow Bolt, use Hellfire for AoE situations, and that's pretty much it. Not much else to it. In terms of damage, you'll usually find yourself at the bottom of the DPS meters, unfortunately, but we are providing raids with important curses like Curse of Recklessness and Curse of Elements to support your overall raid damage. And in AQ40, you need 2 Warlocks to tank Twin Emperors, a very unique role for a caster DPS, I would say. And therefore, there's always 2 guaranteed spots for a Warlock. You do need some specific gear to tank the bosses, so you need to prepare for that, and once you have that gear, you are quite in high demand. Most guilds really only bring 1 to 3 Warlocks per raid, which could sound concerning if you're worried about finding a raid spot, but I wouldn't be too worried. Warlocks are usually a very underplayed and high demand class. A lot of other classes' rotations are very simple as well. You're looking at Frost Mages spamming Frostbolt. You have your Rogues spamming Backstab or Sinister Strike. You have your healers spamming their core healing spell like Shaman spamming Chain Heal. So you get the point. A lot of classes in this game have a very simple rotation. The only main thing that changes is where you land on the DPS meters, and if you're someone who really cares about being on the top of the DPS meter, maybe you should be playing a warrior. But for me, having not to worry about my DPS meter as much as other classes do, and not having to worry about so much gear competition as a melee would, is really nice. I can come to the raid relaxed, sit back, press my Shadow Bolt and my curses, and when it comes to gear, there's low competition. I only have to look at maybe potentially 1 or 2 other Warlocks to compete with. Of course, for the off pieces, I have a few mages I need to compete with, but it's not as bad as warriors and rogues and hunters may even for off pieces. And as I said before, Warlocks are in high demand, especially on Alliance where, Warlocks are quite afraid of the undead ratio, so they decide to play on Horde, not having to deal with the undead. The undeads pretty much have a ratio that allows them to break out of your fear and seduce and become immune for those for 5 seconds. It is quite a big counter to Warlocks in PvP, but I will still say this. Regardless of it being a counter, you can still pretty much beat every class except rogues as a Warlock. I will say, even if you're in a Horde playing against an Alliance rogue, you're going to lose. And if you're an Alliance playing against a rogue that is Orc or Undead, you're still going to lose. Will of the Forsaken is going to make a minor difference in terms of that matchup. Warlocks in PvP is truly where we shine. Once you learn how to master the class, you'll dominate in 1v1s, battlegrounds, and in World PvP. And I'll tell you why. We are the crowd controlling kings. We have Fear, we have Seduce, we have Death Coil, Spell Lock, Curse of Tongues, Curse of Exhaustion. This makes Warlocks a complete nightmare to deal with for your enemies. We also have incredible survivability through Soul Link, Hellstones, and much more. There is some challenges for the Warlock as well. It's not all just positives. We lack mobility. We have 0 escapes like Blink, Sprint, or Vanish, or, Druid's mobility, Hunter's mobility. We just have 0 mobility, and that's why we have to incorporate items like Skull of Impending Doom, rocket boots, nifty stopwatches, those kind of things. We are prone to corpse camping. After dying, it takes a ton of time to recover as a Warlock. You need to summon a new pet. The cast time is super long. The mana, it's gonna take a huge chunk of your mana, up to 20%. You need to cast to create a health stone that takes another 20% of your mana. You have to throw out your demon armor, another 25% of your mana. So it takes a lot of time to recover as a Warlock compared to, for example, let's say a mage. You respawn, you frost nova, you blink out, you run away. You're out, you're fine. As a rogue, you just press stealth, you're fine. For Warlock, we just have Death Coil, interfere, but in many situations that won't be allowed. Let's say you're getting corpse camped by a mage, right? You spawn, you Death Coil him, he just blocks your Death Coil. Against a rogue, he's gonna start stealth. You respawn, he just stuns you and kills you again. And I will also say I won't say this is a negative, but it's something you have to take in consideration. Your pet management. Your demon isn't just a passive tool. It's something you will have to learn how to manage. It's a huge part of your kit. It's almost an extension of your character. You know, you have your fellow hunter for interrupts and dispels. You have your succubus for seduce. Your voidwalker is not just to your sacrifices, also has an AoE taunt that you can use in PvP. You need to learn how to manage your positioning, for both you yourself and your pet, toggling abilities, manually casting spells, and when to put your pet on passive and aggressive. So this adds a lot of complexity to your class. There's also little things like Soulshard management. This is going to take up a whole bag slot. But I do think at the end of the day, the positives far outweigh the negatives on a Warlock. I know this class has a huge reputation of just being a phase roll class. We've seen the Warlock class just dominate dueling tournaments. But this is just far from the truth, guys. Warlocks is probably the most complex, high skill cap class in the game. It's really hard to get into the Warlock class. You need to do your research. You need to spend some time understanding. You need to spend some time putting up your key bindings. The class has so many key bindings compared to other classes. You need to make a lot of macros. You know, your pet management, as I mentioned, your preparation, all these things combined together makes the Warlock probably, I would say, among the top 3 or even top 2 highest skill cap class next to the mage, probably. I'd say the skilling tree is the highest of any class as a Warlock. Now, having said a lot of negative things about the Warlock, I don't want to discourage you from playing the class. I want to remind you how good this class is. It's one of the only classes in the game that you can play PvP and PvE in the same spec. That saves you a lot of gold every week. In terms of the depth in the class, I think it's by far the most depth of any class. When you play against as a Warlock as another player, you have to worry about so many different strategies that the Warlock can apply to you. I can decide to kite you with dots. I can decide to CC chain you with high burst damage. I can decide to play with 3 or 4 different pets if I want to. I have so many strategies against every class, and I feel like when I'm playing something like a hunter, I have the same strategy every single time against every other class, and I feel like that is the same for a lot of the classes. You have one strategy you can apply, and that's the strategy you have to apply to win. As a Warlock, we have a multitude of strategies that we can apply depending on what situation is going on, what pet you have out, what gear you have, what talents you're playing. And I think that's very unique to Warlock. So remind yourself that this class is an absolute monster of a class, and that is why people fear it. And these are my final thoughts, guys. If you're someone who loves strategy, preparation, and outplaying your opponents, I think the Warlock class is the perfect choice. We're incredibly strong, don't worry about that. If you're someone who's ready to rise above the challenges and enjoy one of the most rewarding and powerful classes in the game, the Warlock class might just be your new main. If you made it this far through the video, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Majority of my viewers are not even subscribed. I think around 80% of all my viewers are not subscribed. So make sure you do that, and make sure you go to the links in the description to follow me on Twitch and join my Discord community. I will be streaming live whenever Fresh comes out. I have some big PvP planned, some really fun content to watch. So make sure you join me on Twitch. I'll see you guys there. Take care.